Pop, persuadable. I have a mental illness that extremely affects my mood and what I say at times. When talking to new people, should I bring that up to them? I mean, really, it depends on what the situation is. I mean, you don't really need to go to a bar, meet somebody that you're into and say, hey, by the way, I got a mental illness. So, you know what I mean? But if you feel like it can affect the people around you and you feel like it's an important conversation to have with your coworkers, for instance, or your loved ones or your friends, and you want to let them know what you have to battle, sure. I mean, that's part of your identity, but you know, you got to be careful. You don't only want to be defined by your mental illness, and some people will do that, including yourself. All right? So the question is how much of that is your mental illness and how much accountability are you going to take? It's a very double-edged sword. There are people who have mental illness and they have very toxic behaviors and they do nothing to resolve them because they simply hide behind their blanket term. Well, I have a mental illness, this is me. That's true to a little bit, but not really. It's humiliating because you're really scraping away your own humanity and pretty much living under a blanket of a diagnosis. And I don't agree with that. So it's good to let people know your personality. It's good to people know about your obstacles if you trust them enough and if you feel it's important enough to bring up. But it's also important for us to continue trying to develop and cope and manage those symptoms so we're not destructive to those around us. All right? So it is a two-way street. So the answer to your question, should you tell people about your mental illness? Good question. So what's your answer? I'm trying to resolve it, but every now and then it comes out and people just assume it's just another side of me. That's not who I am. I'm not my mental illness. So it seems like you want to tell people. And if you do, then go about it. That's your choice to make. That's not for me or anyone here to tell you not to. Your mental illness is your own. And how you combat that and how you manage it and how you work with it is only up to you and no one else. If you feel that you have the personality traits to use that mental illness and to advocate about it and to also be able to mediate your personal life in regards to other people knowing about it, it's not for any one of us to say don't do that. We're not you. We're not sure what you're capable of, and when, I hate when people, oh my God, the best thing is, don't talk about your exes on the first date. That's pretty good advice, but it's not pertinent to everybody. Just because you talk about your ex doesn't mean you still care about them. Some people really want somebody to know what they went through, that they don't stand for it, and that it's important for them to talk about. So maybe from a general rule of thumb, you shouldn't talk about it, but we shouldn't tell people don't talk about it. Shouldn't and don't are two separate things. I know that the woman that I'm currently talking to, one of the first conversations we had, we talked about our exes because we felt it was important. So you know, hey, this is what we went through, this is why we ended it, and this is what I'm looking for. All right? Kind of cut a whole bunch of shortcuts. Me and her felt it was a good thing to talk about. We made it work. We had a great conversation. I felt comfortable. She felt comfortable. It was a good conversation. And it turned me on that she could be so honest with me regarding her past. And now somebody else could have looked at what we did and say that's unattractive. That'd be red flags. That's fine, but they're not us. So the point is that we all have our own swag. We are all our own separate organisms. And what we can and can't do is irrelevant to other people. So you may be able to do something that I can't pull off. I may be able to paint my toenails, which your male cousin could never do and never pull it off. So we have our own swag, our own thing about us that makes us unique. If you feel like talking about your mental illness is your swag, it will help you live a more productive life, and you can use that to help kind of mediate those sort of effects of that mental illness and helps you live a more fulfilling and have more personal, meaningful, long-lasting relationships, then who the cares about Tide Pod 371 online telling you how to live your life? You do you. And if it doesn't work out, ask yourself, why didn't it? And should I do it in the future with someone else? Or do I need to do it differently? There's this incessant need that therapists and parents and teachers have to control all variables and give you unsolicited advice. Most of the time, people know the answers. They just need to hear it bounce back at them. I just want to tell people, but it also kind of seems like it doesn't matter. Yeah, I understand that. Maybe there's some people that you want to tell. And then maybe there's some people you don't want to tell. It doesn't need to be dichotomized, which is black or white, all or nothing. So maybe there's certain people you feel this need to tell them. Maybe there's some people you don't want to tell, don't tell them. But then again, people try to label which one of my ways of action is due to illness, so I think I should stop. That's up to you. You got control over this. No one else has control over this. You do. And that's for you to decide. That's not for me to decide, and it's not for Tide Pod 371 to decide. Don't ask me where I came up with that name. Watch, is somebody gonna come in with that name? What did I do to you? Why are you talking about me? Any advice on how to go about horrible anxiety? I have an issue where sometimes it's really hard for me to walk on the same side of the sidewalk of others. Or if I see people coming my way, I avoid them like wildfire and go across the street to avoid them because I don't want to be in a social situation. It scares me to no end and I don't know how to tackle it. Well, the first thing that you do to tackle is you talk about it, and you're doing that now. So congratulations. All right. So if you're having social anxiety to the point where you're very much so avoiding human interaction, the first question that I would generally have is, are you happy with it? Because if people are happy with it, then I usually don't touch it. That might be for a psychologist to touch, but I'm client-centered. So it seems like this is a tendency that you have that you're not too happy with. Because if you were okay with it, then it wouldn't be bothering you and you wouldn't be talking about it. So it does bother you and you're not happy with it. And it seems like, because you say that you have an issue, not a tendency, an issue, so since you define it as such, usually the approach that we would do is cognitive behavioral therapy, even with a psychologist or a group. And there's different various methods as to how we can expose people to social situations. If it's getting to the point where it's generally pervasive, then I would definitely tell you that you should go and seek assistance with that obstacle that you're currently experiencing with, because if you just allow it to foster and allow it to perpetually rise, then it's going to be an issue that's going to bother you even more. So if it's generally pervasive enough where it's that disruptive, then there's usually a protocol that a therapist can help walk you through to kind of overcome that social anxiety a little bit. Doesn't mean we need to completely get rid of it. For some people we can, for some people we can't. But how can we mediate it? How can we make it a little bit more manageable, right? And what I realize with people with social anxiety is that they have maladaptive thoughts in regards to social anxiety. They look at it as, if I don't have social anxiety, I need to be a social butterfly, and that doesn't necessarily need to be you. And so when you immediately tell somebody, listen, we're not trying to make you a social butterfly, we're trying to make you who you want to be. If you want to be a social butterfly, let's try it out. But a lot of people don't really want to. They just want to be able to live a little bit more productive, normal lives, where it's not generally pervasive and infiltrate in their sort of sanctity, right? Their mental fortitude. So the point of that being said is that first we have to get rid of unrealistic expectations. So you have insight in a problem. Let's get rid of the unrealistic expectations, and let's say, how can we mediate this a little bit? And when you say it that way, when you phrase it that way, you're going to realize that it's more attainable, and then it's going to motivate you a little bit more to figure this out. In terms of that social anxiety, you deserve somebody to give you their undivided attention and find all the specifics about it. Does it only happen on certain days? Does it only happen with certain genders? Does it only happen in public? Does it happen in private? How are you at family gatherings with people that you're aware of? Is it only with strangers? How are you in a classroom setting? The more you get to know people, does it deviate a little bit, or rather alleviate a little bit? What are the symptoms of the anxiety? Is it just avoidance? Is it an increased heart rate? Can you have panic attacks? So that's what my point is, that there's too many things that I would need to know, too many variables, too many aspects. And again, that's the point of therapy. You listen to the person. You could have a basic issue and I can tell you I will pick apart that issue for an hour. I will find every little detail. So you could tell me that you're unsatisfied that your lover is not giving you enough sex, and somehow I'll find out what your favorite childhood color was. It's just how it works. You pick out every little tiny detail. Understand the situation. That can take a lot of time and a lot of energy, but you deserve nothing less. To answer your question, though, talking about it is a good thing. Getting rid of unrealistic expectations is what we just kind of talked about. And the question is what are you going to do about it? I'm gonna end the stream. I just wanted to say hi to everybody. I got more documentation to finish, and need to make time for my personal ones now, just because I've been pretty busy with life, and it's important that we give our undivided attention to our loved ones. So that's what I gotta go do. It's your obligation in life, and it should be a good obligation. If it's not a good obligation, then you're fucking with the wrong people. On that note, I will see you guys a different day. Who knows when? Maybe tomorrow. Probably tomorrow. I'm gonna play on my mobile device. I'm not playing on my computer anymore. I lose my computer. The lag, the buttons. Don't like it. Have a good night, guys.